Listen properly. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Footsack Files, the show that pokes the bear, rattles the cage, and says what others are too scared to say. First of all, just a reminder, if you'd prefer to jump straight to the main story, please feel free. You can check where it starts on the timeline I've posted. But I promise, everything preceding the main story are worth sticking around for. Now, before we dive into today's explosive subject, before we hand out today's Empty Skull Award, here's a reminder. I share a short excerpt from one of my two books in every episode. If it leaves you wanting more, which it should, you can order a digital copy, a PDF copy of either book by simply emailing me at author.skulk@gmail.com. Only 75 Rand each. That's, listen properly, 200 Rand less than retail, or just 125 Rand for both. And I promise you, every cent goes to the animal charity I support, which feeds and cares for feral fur babies who are completely dependent on our human compassion to survive. A very special thanks to the viewers who had ordered copies from my last episode. I really appreciate it. Now, another quick reminder. The cap I'm wearing, a stunning cap, is also up for grabs. And I promise you every cent also goes to the same worthy cause. Perfect for anyone like me who enjoys a bit of controversy and the occasional pot stirring, especially when it upsets the empty-skulled, corrupt South African government. They are available in blue, light grey, dark grey and brown. They're only 175 Rand each, plus 50 Rand for delivery via the courier guy lockers. Want one? Send me an email and I'll sort you out. Now, without further ado, here is this week's much anticipated excerpt from my second book.
Without a moment's pause, I gave the order we had all dreaded. "Lock down the embassy," I commanded, my voice sharp with urgency as I addressed Staff Sergeant Hawkins. Within seconds, the blaring sound of the lockdown siren cut through the air, its urgency unmistakable. The magnetic locks on the doors engaged with a resounding slam, sealing the building. The loudspeakers crackled to life, their voice sharp and clear. "Duck and cover! Get away from the windows! Take cover and await further instructions!" The immediate effect was dramatic. The police, who had been casually leaning against their vehicles and observing the chaos with a detached attitude, were suddenly jolted into action. They scrambled to respond to the growing threat, their previous nonchalance replaced by a focused urgency. Outside, the scene erupted into chaos. Protesters who had been hurling insults and waving signs now turned their anger toward the cars parked in the embassy's parking spots outside. Several vehicles, including those belonging to embassy staff, were targeted. I watched in horror as one protester methodically smashed the windows of a car with a metal rod. The sound of breaking glass mingled with the shouts and cries of frustration from the crowd. The intensity of the situation escalated rapidly. I caught sight of another protester using a heavy tool to assault the bulletproof glass of PAV A. The glass, designed to withstand significant force, even bullets from an AK-47 or the shrapnel of an exploding bomb, never meant to break, showed a spiderweb of cracks from the blows inflicted upon it. As the chaos continued, the police deployed tear gas. The canisters hissed and popped as they dispersed into the crowd, filling the air with a choking, acrid haze. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The protesters, overwhelmed by the gas, began to stagger and retreat, their once unified rage giving way to confusion and disarray. Slowly but surely, the protest began to wane. The crowd, now visibly disoriented and fleeing from the noxious smoke, started to break apart. The once formidable assembly of angry voices and raised fists dwindled into a scattering of individuals. Inside the embassy, we continued to monitor the situation, ensuring that all personnel were accounted for and safe. The lockdown had been a necessary measure, and it had achieved its purpose. The immediate danger had passed, but the damage outside was extensive. As the scene outside came back into focus, the damaged cars and the cracked windows of PAV A, Kevin and I took stock of the aftermath. The protest had been fierce and destructive, but thanks to the swift response and the effectiveness of our lockdown, the embassy's core operations and staff had remained secure.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed the excerpt and are already emailing me your order. Now then, it's time to award the Empty Skull Award to the biggest empty skull who has truly outdone themselves in recent events. So, without further ado, the Empty Skull Award goes to Deputy Press Ombud Frans Kruger and Senior Fake News 24 Editor Pieter de Tooy. So Deputy Press Ombud Frans Kruger, senior with a very telling whiskey-stained red cheeks, has ruled that Fake News 24 editor Pieter de Tooy, a purebred ANC gatgabba, did not breach the press code in referring to Ronaldo Gous, who I and many others highly respect, as a malignant echo chamber actor in a recent op-ed. So what this empty skull basically decided is that another empty skull, that being Pieter de Tooy, was totally justified with this insult, as well as saying that disinformation spread by AfriForum CEO Kali Kriel was factual. What a total douchebag, as Americans would say. So let's not drag this out. Here's my factual take. The Press Ombudsman is funded by subscription and membership fees, paid by the very newspapers, magazines, and online publications they are supposed to monitor, including Fake News 24. Now, remember that well-known saying, "He who pays the piper calls the tune." And concerning Pieter de Tooy, well, what more can I say? He is factually probably the worst excuse for a reporter. That's why it is a factual determination that these two empty skulls are worthy recipients of this week's award. Well, all right, now that we've got that out of the way, I want to thank you for the great response on the last episode. I wish I could show all the comments, but I've chosen a few interesting ones. Again, if you'd rather jump to the main story, please feel free. Rick Lobb said, "These racist pieces of VIP protection will get away with this blatant murder." Well, Rick, I don't know if I could have said it better. Julia Wood said, "Bodyguards only needed by criminals." B.S. Led said, "It's murder. Why the duck does that mayor have ducking bodyguards in the first place and has no business pulling anyone over?" Erika de Kok said, "And nothing will happen to the perpetrators." Well, Erika, unless AfriForum steps in and prosecute the killers themselves. Ma Baker said, "I'm so very happy at the arrival of Mr. Bozell from America. I know you will deliver the much-needed snortklaps on Squirrel's nose. I would love to shake his hand and thank him personally." Ma Baker, "I'm equally thrilled with Ambassador Bozell's arrival at last." If you haven't yet watched my episode about Ambassador Brent Bozell, please click on the link at the end of this episode. It's really worth watching. And 25,000 people agreed. TP Korea said, "Bodyguards for a mayor? That is why we don't have water, electricity, and proper municipal services. That's why South Africa is so bankrupt, and still people vote for ANC and EFF. Well, I hope people will stop voting for them, and also for the ANC's new best bud, the DA. And that we start supporting the Freedom Front Plus instead. They've proved over and over again that they're not afraid to take on these criminal clowns." All right, that's as far as the comments go for today. Please remember, I really read every single one, and I really appreciate you taking your precious time to share your thoughts. So please keep them coming. Now, at last, you'll say, let's get into today's episode. Just to be clear, a US visa is not a right. It's a privilege granted at the discretion of the United States government Under US immigration law, officials can deny or revoke a visa if they determine someone's conduct is inconsistent with US interests. That includes security concerns, fraud, criminal activity, if someone publicly celebrates violence, or mocks and celebrates the murder of a beloved American icon like Charlie Kirk. Now remember, after the shooting of Charlie Kirk, emotions ran high. To his supporters, he was a patriot. So when a foreign national publicly insults, mocks, or celebrates harm against a US political figure, that's no longer just debate. That crosses into hostile conduct that should rightly result in a South African's visa to be revoked. Just like what happened to Nhlamulo Notwa Baloyi, a South African music executive whose visa was cancelled by the US State Department after he made a social media post celebrating and mocking reactions to Kirk's death. Okay, so now I want to highlight another idioten who should never be granted a visa and have the privilege of setting foot on US soil. This is Dr. Tristan Kapp. He claims to be a subject expert in, among others, historicism and conspirituality. Here he is with his sister. Now, call me stupid, I don't mind, but I had to look up what the hell esotericism is. Let me make you smarter by explaining the definition. And remember, this genius has a PhD in this stuff. Please make sure you're sitting for this one. Esotericism is the spiritual, philosophical, or mystical teachings that are intended for a small, initiated group. Conspirituality is described as a blend of conspiracy thinking and spiritual belief systems. It describes a worldview where spiritual ideas, in brackets awakening, hidden truths, high consciousness, merge with conspiracy narratives, in brackets, secret elites, hidden control, and suppressed knowledge. That's not all. He boldly describes himself as a sexuality and spiritual scholar. A philosopher, a proud atheist nogal, and a hater of Jews. Just to emphasize it, here is a photo he posted of himself dressed like a transsexual Satan worshipper, stating, that was his quote, "The greatest celebration in the satanic religion is the celebration of your own birthday. Honor yourself and honor Satan." Frickin' hell. Okay. Now that we've had a chance to get to know Dr. Tristan Kapp, who graduated from the University of Pretoria, which only tells me of falling standards, now that we've got to know him a little bit better, let's see what some of this genius's views are on two widely discussed issues. First of all, farm murders. So, the learned Dr. Kapp has argued that panic around farm murders is exaggerated and misrepresented as a unique racial genocide, and that it represents, listen to this, MAGA-style populism, conspiracy thinking, and anti-intellectualism. What a mouthful. I'm not even going to comment on that because it comes down to yet another ANC supporters' brazenly empty-headed denial of the documented savage farm attacks, showing obscene contempt for the lives ripped away in utterly barbaric violence. Now, here's where I will argue that this brain-dead Satan worshipper should never be allowed to set foot on US soil. And it comes down to what he had said about Charlie Kirk. He was publicly critical of Charlie Kirk, particularly in the context of Kirk's betrayal after he was assassinated in September last year. In Kopp's WordPress article titled Charlie Kirk Was No Martyr, Polemics, Populism, and the Afterlife of American Christofascism, he strongly criticizes how President Trump and his supporters framed Kirk's violent death as heroic martyrdom. But he didn't stop there. He portrayed Charlie Kirk as a populist and polarizing figure who amplified division. Kopp further described Charlie Kirk as a polemicist, propagandist, and hate-farming profiteer, and accusing Kirk of spreading fear-based, often xenophobic rhetoric that scapegoated black people, LGBTQ plus communities, and woke culture for political gain. He linked Kirk's rhetoric to global right-wing movements and connected Kirk's framing of issues like white victimhood to similar narratives in South Africa. Kopp saw Charlie Kirk not as a hero or a victim, but as an ideological architect of polarizing populist narratives, whose ideas contributed to social division rather than constructive debate. Well, I would say this is even worse than what Nota Baloyi had to say, which got his visa recently revoked. Well, suffice it to say, I will be forwarding a report on everything I've mentioned here, including this Satan disciples insulting remark toward Ambassador Bozell, to my former colleagues at the US State Department, particularly at the US Consulate in Johannesburg, to ensure this abomination, masquerading as a so-called doctor, never sets foot in the US. He will ultimately spew his garbage to leftist liberal students at universities in the US that will undoubtedly lap it out like brain-dead zombies. Now, you'll find this interesting. I actually confronted Dr. Kopp on his anti-American views. And here's the email that he sent to me 2 months ago in response. Just listen. The very upstanding Dr. Kopp wrote to me, I'd rather defecate in my hands and applaud than visit the States. I'm quite happy where I am. Not all of us worship America like some kind of obese, Christo-fascist redneck mecca. But whatever makes you happy, scholar. Well, Dr. Kopp, nothing would delight me more than seeing you permanently exiled from the United States, forever stamped as persona non grata, a walking symbol of your disgrace. Now, please go ahead and comment. Tell me whether you agree with me on what I said or not. I'd love to hear your take. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button to keep this channel growing. Stay safe out there, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.